Yato was once a fierce and ruthless god of war, whose name was feared and renowned for centuries due to all the great horrors he brought upon those who wished to be murdered. Thus he's been recognized as a god of calamity. But things have changed since the last time that he was a god of war, and now Japan enjoys a relatively peaceful era. As a god who's literally a nobody, Yato will do any task for 5 yen. One day, he gets a call asking to find a stray cat called Mylord. While looking for the cat, a middle school girl named Hiyori saves him from being run over by a bus. In the end, she's the one who gets hit by the bus, but didn't die thanks to Yato's power. Instead, she notices her body lying down on the road and realizes her soul was separated from her body. From now on, she's able to walk in both the world of the living and the spirit world. However, the girl's soul ends up being separated from her body. The next day, while looking for the same lost cat, Yato finds himself cornered by a large, toad phantom blocking his path. Yato tries to fight the phantom, but realizes he doesn't have a regalia, the spirit of an uncorrupted dead human, who can turn into a divine weapon and bring out the full power of a god. Luckily, Hiyori in her spirit form arrives and saves him, retreating away from the massive frog. But the frog jumps and blocks their path, so Hiyori knocks the frog out with her kickboxing move. Yato takes her hand and runs away from the phantom. He completes his job and delivers Mylord to the kid's house. Later that night, Hiyori real body wakes up on Yato's back and asks him about her condition. Yato explains that she's basically a half phantom, while also mentioning that she can walk in both spirit and human worlds. He also mentions that phantoms are from the spirit world, existing yet devoid of all life. They come in all sizes and shapes and prey on the living. Only young children, animals, and gods can see these creatures. He tells Hiyori that she's basically living on the borders of both worlds. Hiyori freaks out and asks him to turn her back to a simple human. But Yato extorts 5 yen from her. Once Hiyori pays up, he tells Hiyori that he will help her return to normal, hiding the fact that he doesn't have a clue at all about how to. Yato gets a call 1 week later from Hiyori, questioning when he is going to turn her back to normal. But Yato tells her he can't because he needs a regalia. Hiyori calls him a few hours later and informs him she found a spirit willing to become his regalia. Yato immediately teleports to her, but it turns out to be a giant phantom. The two run as fast as they can, and while doing so, Yato spots an uncorrupted spirit. Using his life force, he transforms the spirit into a bandaged katana bearing the name Yuki. With these conditions fulfilled, Yato calls his regalia, absorbing his memories, and gets eaten by the phantom. But with his godly powers, Yato chants his prayer, enchanting Yuki with his divine abilities, unleashing a series of slashes, killing the phantom in an instant. Yato falls to the ground and starts crying after learning about how sad Yuki's past is. Later, he visits one of the shrines and cleanses his hand with holy water, removing the blight and corrosion he got from being eaten by the phantom. Yuki transforms into his human form, and Yato introduces Yuki to Hiyori as Yukine. He tells Yukine that he's his regalia and will serve him from now on. The next day, Yato extorts money from Hiyori again to fund their lunch and eating food. Yato gets pricked by Yukine's dirty thoughts. Yato tells Yukine that gods and their regalias share both mind and body. Every single wicked thought that a regalia thinks is felt by his or her master, and sometimes even injures both of them. He then receives a job, and upon arriving at the place, an old man appears and Hiyori recognizes the man as the god of learning, Tenjin. Tenjin asks Yato to dispose of some phantoms plaguing a railroad due to a storm, a type of event that attracts various phantoms to an area. The god sends his most recent regalia to help him, Mayu, Yato's previous regalia, who revealed she was a gold digger and quit her job as Yato's divine weapon because he was poor. At the site, Mayu briefs Yato about people killing themselves. Yato doesn't want to do it, but quickly defeats the phantom after noticing that it targeted Hiyori and finishes the task. Hiyori asks Yato why the sudden change in tone, and Yato responds that he refuses to let anyone die in front of regalias, adding that even though life is painful and hard as it is, people should appreciate that they are alive. Throwing away their lives carelessly is just awful, especially for people who once longed to live as long as they can. A few days later, Yato visits Kafuku, his sugar mommy, and one of the 7 gods of fortune. He introduces Kafuku to Hiyori and Yukain, and the two meet her regalia, Daikoku. Yato gets another call and leaves to complete the job. Apparently, Kafuku scammed a man and drained his fortune. But Yato and Yukain manage to cut his ties to Kafuku, saving him from a life of eternal disaster. Later at night, Yato asks Hiyori what took her so long to come so late from Kafuku's house. After hearing her answer, he quickly realizes they have told her about his past. He was once a god of war who killed everything in his path, from phantoms to humans, even regalias. But times changed, and there's no need for any god of war anymore. Gods are created by someone's wishes. People always remember and wish for something specific to major gods. But minor gods, like Yato, must find a way to survive. That's why Yato helps people's wishes come true. If he doesn't help them, he will be forgotten, and therefore his existence will disappear. He then tells Hiyori that if something happens to him, she should seek Kafuku's aid. Later, Nora, Yato's previous regalia from the time he was a murderous god, appears. He confronts Nora and she tells Yato that she'll be always waiting for him to call her out before disappearing instantly. Later that day, Hiyori decides that she will take care of Yukain. Yato refuses and explains that he and Yukain cannot stay together because Yukain's so prone to indecent thoughts. But Yukain still comes with Hiyori. The next day, Yato monitors Yukain, and it seems like Yukain's doing a lot of bad things that start to affect Yato's health. He tells Hiyori that Yukain's wicked thoughts are affecting him, citing that regalias used to be people and people sin. Giving into temptation is what taught the gods what is right and wrong, and through their regalia, they found it out. That night, Yukain and Hiyori get attacked by phantoms and Yato saves them. But one of the phantoms is a girl that Yukain tried to help after finding her crying on the street while waiting for her parents. However, the girl was already corrupted and Yato forces Yukain to kill the evolving phantom, even though Yukain doesn't want to kill the little girl. The next day, Yato interrupts Yukain from skating around and asks him where he got the skateboard from. Yukain tells him that Hiyori gave that to her, and lies to Hiyori confirms it. A few minutes later, Yato and Yukain gets attacked by Bishamon, another god of war, who desires to get her revenge on Yato because he killed her regalias in the past. Bishamon attacks Yato, but he manages to dodge it. He then tries to flee and catches his breath. Yato scolds Yukain and tells him to straighten up, but Yukain seems reluctant, given the difference in strength between him and Bishamon. Bishamon finally catches up to Yato and as the two square off, and she fires off another shot, this time hitting Yato. She fires another one, but this time, Yukain's blades didn't cut the bullet. So Yato retreats and tries to escape Bishamon by heading to a forest. Once he's away, Yukain asks him if he really killed Bishamon's regalia and Yato confirms it. However, Bishamon finds them and starts destroying a forest reserve. Yato faces her off, but as the two's about to fight, Kafuku arrives and tries to stop the two gods from fighting by summoning a vent, a portal that connects the human world to the underworld, which houses hideous and terrifying phantoms. Seeing how big the vent is, everyone decides to retreat and deal with the phantoms that will spread into town. Later that night, Yato gets another job at a convenience store and is visited by Daikoku and Kafuku. However, Yato gets stung again by Yukain's thoughts, and quickly confronts Yukain about it. But Yukain tells him that he didn't do anything, and starts running away because Yato doesn't trust him. While running away, he trips on Kafuku, dropping a charity box, revealing that he actually did steal something. Yukain runs away, and Kafuku's regalia, Daikoku, gives Yato another phantom-slaying job. Hiyori tries to remind Yato that regalias aren't just tools, but are humans and should be treated as one. With this in mind, Yato goes after the phantoms, and while trying to find Yukain, he finds Yukain talking to Nora and tells him to not listen to her. Yato then summons Yukain and goes after the butterfly phantom and tries to cut it, but it barely damages the phantom, because their relationship has deteriorated and Yukain turned into a dull blade. The phantom goes after Yato and nabs him by its mouth, but Yato fills the phantom with holy water, poisoning it. Yato douses the Seki with the remaining water and uses his skills to kill the phantom. The next day, Yato finds another job from a bullied kid called Manabu. Seeing the similarities between them, Yukine leaves the bathroom to go off on his own. Yato gives Manabu a cutter to deal with his bullies and tells him to fight the bully if he wants to lose his humanity. Later, Hiyori and Yato find Manabu, who managed to deal with his bully. Yukine, on the other hand, has been completely consumed by temptation and his desire. The desire to experience the life that had been robbed out of him in his previous life, making him go on a rampage and start destroying the windows of the school. This makes Yato collapse on the ground as the blight starts to take over his body. Hiyori carries Yato on her back and finds Yukine, and tells him that each time he does something bad, Yato gets blighted, and now it's taken a turn for the worse, as he might die from it. Yato tried to endure the pain, but it's come to a point where it's almost impossible to save him. Hiyori rushes to Kafuku's front door and asks for help, but Daikoku draws a line and prevents them from entering and possibly contaminating Kafuku. Hiyori begs the two to help her, and so Daikoku lets her enter, while he seeks help from nearby shrines. He manages to get Mayu to help him, but the rest declines him due to Yato being an unknown god. Furthermore, purifying a corrupted regalia poses danger to the ones doing the cleansing, and so Hiyori springs into action and asks for Kazuma's help, who accepts it because he owes Yato a favor. Bishamon was once also infected by the blight because of her corrupted regalias, forcing Kazuma to ask Yato to save the goddess from a painful death and kill her corrupted regalias. The two arrive at Kafuku's place, and the three regalias, Kazuma, Daikoku, and Mayu, immediately create a barrier made out of borderlines to perform the ablution ritual, and start cleansing Yukine's spirit after seeing phantoms growing out of his back. The excruciating pain makes Yato cough a large amount of blood. However, Yukine still doesn't confess his sins, so the three regalias tighten their borderline, forcing Yukine to confess. As Yukine's name continuously fades, Hiyori reminds Yukine of Yato's kindness when he had nothing. Yato also tells him that even though he can't live as a normal person or even interact with them anymore, he gave Yukine a person's name, commanding him to live as one. This pierces Yukine's snow-cold heart and warms him up, forcing him to finally confess his crimes. And so Yukine reverts back to his human form. Yato forces him to apologize for everything that he did, and the two share a heartfelt reunion. The next day, Yato receives a call from Hiyori, inviting him and Yukine to a shrine visit. Once Yato and Yukine are done with work, they immediately visit Hiyori. But Hiyori can't remember Yato. Yato tries so hard to make Hiyori remember him, but it seems like Hiyori can remember everyone except him. Nora appears once again and tells them that she stole Hiyori's memories of Yato, and if he wants it back, he has to visit them. Rabu, a god of calamity, finally shows up and challenges Yato. A long time ago, Rabu and Yato used to be gods in arms, but then peace came by and Rabu faded into obscurity, while Yato survived doing odd jobs for 5 yen. Yato summons Yukine again and crosses swords against Rabu, but the god of calamity is overpowering him, so Yato responds by getting on Rabu's level. Rabu tries to manipulate Yato into going back to his past self as a god of calamity, but Yukine manages to stop Yato from falling into darkness. As the two gods of calamities clash swords, a storm forms from their location, attracting a lot of phantoms. Nora gives her an ultimatum. If he can defeat Rabu, she'll give her Hiyori's memories, leaving shortly after. After learning about Yato's past, Yukine tries to talk about how to solve Hiyori's lost memories, but Yato tells him to forget about it. The next day, Nora appears once again and teases Yato about Hiyori's fading memory. She tells her he has no time and that if he doesn't come and visit them, Hiyori will end up an empty vessel without any memories. The next day, Yato and Yukine pay Hiyori a visit and tell her they'll bring her memories back, before leaving to finally face off against Rabu and confront Nora. The three arrive at the shrine and Yato's surprised that Hiyori came with them. Yato starts his fight against Rabu. The two squares off once again, but Rabu's passively defending. Yato and Yukine use this chance to attack him, but Rabu knocks them off. Rabu then encloses Yato inside a water sphere, but Hiyori pulls him out of the sphere. This irritates Rabu and starts going after Hiyori, but Yato saves her and retreats. Rabu finds them hiding behind a rock. He then shows the marble sphere containing Hiyori's memories. He then throws it on the pond before slicing it in half. making Hiyori fall unconscious and enraging Yato at the same time. Yato goes after Rabu like a completely different person, unleashing his true God of War powers. Yato's attacks become more precise and brutal as he clashes swords with Rabu. After getting behind Rabu, the two sprint toward each other before exchanging blows. Before Yato lands a hit on Rabu's shoulders, Rabu calls forth the brewing storm and merges with the phantoms, causing him to become a half-god and half-phantom. In their exchange of attacks, they destroy the surrounding areas near Hiyori, which almost kills her. Luckily, Yato manages to save her just in time, but Rabu takes Hiyori away, asking why Yato refuses to return as a god of calamity. Yato tells him he doesn't care and times changed, so Rabu takes his anger on Hiyori, declaring that she's going to be a sacrifice. After doing his chant, Yato uses Yukain to destroy the phantom inside Rabu. The phantom gets destroyed, and Yato finishes off Rabu, ending one of the remnants of his dark past, thus getting one step closer to his dream shrine and an inch closer to a life of a new leaf. As the day ends, Yato tells Hiyori to cut ties with them and live a normal life, but Hiyori staunchly refuses his offer and decides that she'll stay forever with him. So, Yato honors her wish and grants her the fate.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.